Canada's pipeline debate is gaining new momentum with major proposals aimed at moving more Alberta oil both east and west. In recent days, premiers and the Prime Minister have unveiled plans for two separate projects, one that would transport crude to refineries in southwestern Ontario, and another that would carry more than 1 million barrels a day from the oil sands to British Columbia's coast for export.
This submission is the result of months of intensive work, bringing together world-class technical expertise, engineering analysis, economic modeling, and early engagement with Indigenous communities and partners. After studying both northern and southern route options, Alberta selected a southern route from Bruderheim, Alberta, to a deep-water VLCC-capable port terminal on BC's southwest coast. With the help of our technical advisory group made up of industry experts, we determined that this route offers the fastest, most cost-effective path to expanding Canada's energy exports. Following the existing Trans Mountain pipeline corridor, this project builds on existing infrastructure. It reflects feedback from Indigenous groups and the Government of British Columbia, reduces regulatory barriers, given it would not be subject to the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act, and gets Canada's most valuable natural resource to global markets faster.
Supporters say the project could strengthen Canada's energy security, expand access to global markets, and drive economic growth, while critics continue to raise questions about cost, risk, and long-term demand. To discuss what this renewed pipeline push could mean for Canada's economy, I'm now joined by Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, thank you so much for the time.
Well, great to be here, Theresa. I think all those things can be true, both the pro and the con, simultaneously. But that's what a public-private partnership often looks like.
Well, Brendan, would you say the pipeline is really an infrastructure project, or is it a strategic response to Canada's weakening economic leverage?
Okay, not exactly a softball. Both, I think. I think it's both, with a possible modification of it being not a strategic response, but a tactical response. So the reason Canada came together was so that the regions could have some sort of bargaining power. And by working together, we could accomplish more than any one region, any one province could hope to accomplish independently. And sometimes we remember this is true. And even the biggest projects that show that they were absolutely necessary at the time were public-private partnerships, like the Canadian Pacific Railroad. I think the federal government gave the consortium that was putting that together vast tracts of land and 25 million 1880s dollars, and the things still had to be bailed out by the government, and that was 150 years ago or nearabouts. So these things are always more expensive. But the difference, and this is why I quibble with the word strategic, is that was forward thinking. That was, the United States just won its Civil War, and they're pushing out in all directions. We need to do something to unify the country. And it was done aforethought by the Prime Minister of the day, John A. Macdonald. This is very much a catch-up reaction. Now, a catch-up reaction is better than nothing at all. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. But it is, something we could have been getting on for the last decade. But we were told by the Liberal government, the last Prime Minister, that there was no economic case for getting Canada's energy supply to blue water, getting it to the ocean.
And does government support for the pipeline create value for the nation, or does it transfer risk from private investors to taxpayers?
I think that's another both question, Theresa. I think that yes, there is public risk and there will be private benefit, just like there was with the CPR, that the government put up a lot of money to create what was one of Canada's great, I guess it still is one of Canada's great multinational corporations. It's a fraction of what it was, in that the CPR was energy and hotels as well as railroads once upon a time. Now it's railroads both across Canada and north-south. But the government helped create that because some things are just too big to be created on their own across a wilderness as vast as our country. So I think it's also critical for the nation. I mean, if we it is existential. If we do not do this, we are at risk of genuinely losing Alberta. They've looked across the country, and time after time, Quebec has said, we'll have a referendum if this or if that. Alberta's saying, yeah, well, let's try that. The thing about referendums, you might be very, very sure how they're going to go, and then it comes as a bit of a surprise how they actually go. David Cameron, call your office.
Now, does the pipeline strengthen Canada's economic diversification, or does it deepen Canada's exposure to a volatile commodity cycle?
Leading question much? Yes, I think it does, but here's what. I don't think it is a cyclical. It is cyclical. Energy is cyclical. All commodities are cyclical. I think there is a massive secular decline in the use of fossil fuels. I do think that between now and 2035, 2050, 2070, some number within the memory of people that are listening to this program, people will be using a lot less fossil fuels than there are now. There is a finite window. During that finite window, energy is going to come from somewhere. It's going to come from the ground. It's going to come from all kinds of different sources, but fossil fuels are going to come from the ground somewhere. Either it comes from Canada, and I'm not saying if we don't do it, somebody else will, but somebody else will, and what's more, they will do it with a lot more environmental harm than they do in Canada. When there is environmental protections here, there is Indigenous protections here. There's a lot of things that go into getting energy out of the ground here that aren't the case in other nations. So in terms of environmental impact, I think it's better than the energy come from Canada while this window exists. But yes, I think you make a really good point. Our real value in this country is not the rocks and the trees and the grease. It is the brain power of our nation. And to the extent that it is possible to raise money to empower particularly young people on the new technologies in which they're at the forefront, I think that's going to be our most important natural resource, and we should be doubling down on that as well.
And Brendan, we do just have under a minute left, but beyond energy companies, which sectors of the Canadian economy would be most affected by a West Coast pipeline?
Well, I think Canada as a whole. I think industrial. If industries are going to be much more national, we've been through the era of globalization. It's created more wealth for more billions of people than anything else in the world. But countries are retreating unto themselves. I think the industries from a West Coast pipeline in BC will benefit, but I also think from an East Coast pipeline, like the one our Premier in Ontario here and the Premier in Alberta were announcing, getting more energy cheaply into Ontario will also help the reindustrialization of this province. So I think industries within Canada will also be helped, as well as the energy sector as a whole.